Fish, you want to go ahead?
I was going to let them know who Emmett is. No, I think she scratched out it. So I grew up in Chicago for the people that are in Chicago, and I spent the first 9 years of my career at the score, working my way from an intern to a part-time producer to a producer to executive producer to sports director. So I was in Chicago for 9 years, then Kansas City for a couple years as a program director, and then with SiriusXM for a little over 10 years, also as a program
Wow.
director. So I'm
Wow.
old, yeah.
Yeah,
Experience.
for me, so I started out in this business as a 29-year-old intern
Mhm.
at ESPN Cleveland. Definitely a late bloomer, but I've been at ESPN Cleveland my entire career. Started as that intern, grinded, become a part timer, then a full timer, and was a terrible producer, but I somehow parlayed that into becoming an on-air host. Um, excuse me. And now I work for ESPN on a national level as well, nights and
Nice.
weekends type of stuff.
Okay, so working for ESPN on a national level, what is the biggest difference from more of a local to national that you've noticed?
Well, I mean, the biggest difference is you're not, and I don't want to use the word confined, but I don't really have a better one. You're not
Mhm.
confined to one team or one city. At ESPN Cleveland, we talk about Guardians, Cavs, Browns,
Right.
and sometimes we venture to talk about other teams, but always in the context of Cleveland. When you do, radio or you work on a national level, you're talking about everything. It makes it, in some ways, it makes it easier. In others, it makes it a lot harder. I don't watch a lot of women's really college basketball. Period. Well, when I do ESPN radio, I better know
Yeah,
I better know enough
indeed.
to at least not look like an idiot when I'm on the air. So that's the biggest difference is when you do a national level show, there's a lot more on the buffet table,
Hmm.
so to speak, at least from a variety.
That's got to be definitely refreshing that you have more topics that you can cover, but it does has to come with its stress as well. Um, just kind of leaning into my next question, how do you go about getting good content?
It's something you gotta learn.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's easy. Lamar Jackson requests a trade on Twitter, and it ain't hard at all. You immediately know how you feel about it, what your thoughts are, and that's content that's kind of been developed for you. Um, you can get in trouble. Like me, I just naturally get into how I feel and my thoughts on it. You do want to, if you can, have some type of insight or a perspective that maybe hasn't been heard yet. But if you
Hmm.
try too hard for that, it gets all muddy and it comes across as not being authentic. So,
Mm.
um, you have to have done it for a long time. And the biggest thing is just ask yourself, what are fans talking about? What do fans want to know? Because that's who we are doing the show for. We're not doing it for ourselves, even though a lot
Yeah.
of us think we are. We're doing it for the listener. So that's what we talk about. What do fans think? I eavesdrop on conversations when I'm out around the city, always on social media.
Mhm.
Just really seeing what people are talking about, and that's how you come up with it. I'm a huge European football fan. Some people call it soccer, but I know most people aren't. And
Right.
just to drive fish crazy from time to time, I talk about Tottenham on the show, even though I know nobody cares about it.
Well,
We
I
all
think
do.
I think you said a great point about for a lot of creatives, we kind of can get stuck in our heads about, oh, are people going to like this content, things of that nature, but you're really creating for your audience. And sometimes it can be hard to turn that switch off from your own content to how the audience is going to receive it. I'm glad you touched on that. Matt, do you have anything to say towards the question? How do you go about getting good content for your shows?
I mean, to me, it's really simple. Is get the best people on your team, right? And if you get people who are experienced, you get people who are creative, you get people who aren't afraid to take chances, and aren't afraid to have fun and aren't afraid to make mistakes. I think, having the best team around you. I got lucky. I came here a little over 3 years ago, and there was already a great content team in place, creating great content every day. And talking primarily about the Browns, but somewhat on the other teams. And it was part of the reason I came, is it was a great opportunity to work with a team of a bunch of teammates who really lean into the creation process and lean into their roles on the team here.
I'm glad you brought up team. It's very important, no matter where you go in this industry, that, and this is what I teach my students, that, your team members all have a common goal at the end of the day. You all understand that the project must get done, and you all want to see it at its best. So that means everyone's bringing their best to the table, no matter what in their personal life is going on, no matter how they may feel about the topic. But we all know at the end of submitting our project, we've done our best. The content is at its best as well. Emmett, is there any specific team goals or things that you look for when you are going to work with new team members and things of that nature?
I think I might be stealing this from Andrew Berry or Kevin Stefanski, but diversity in thought. I love that. The reason I got into this business and the reason I love it so much is I'm a fan of perspective. And I understand that, 4 people can experience the same thing, but all see it differently, but all experience it differently. So when I'm working with people or looking to work with people, I want to work with people that are different than me. I know how I feel. I want hopefully somebody that feels different, or even if they feel the same way, maybe they have a piece of insight that I don't have and might not even have the ability to get, and because I just don't see things that way. So whenever it's time to work with someone, I'm excited to work with people who are different than me. I find real value in that.
And I think I'm sorry to jump on that. It really, what you're hearing from Emmett is someone who is intellectually curious, right?
Yes.
Who doesn't want someone just to say, hey, slap him on the back and say, Emmett, that's I agree, right? I think he wants to be challenged and wants to hear other points of view, whether it is because of where someone grew up, where they live, who they're a fan of, or their own, personal feelings on things. And I think, no matter what your skill set is, if you're intellectually curious, that will take you a long way.
Some would say that's basically how you're able to reach a different market, to be honest. You never know what you will stumble upon and who you're able to affect. So another thing I tell my students, and it's in accord with what we're talking about, is you can't control how someone receives the information. But at the same time, like we see with trends all over TikTok and things of that nature, someone might score a touchdown and do a famous dance, and now he's trending and everyone's caught on to it. But now it's brung views to his team, it's brung views to his own individual character and all the organizations he might support. So you never know how people are going to receive the information and the things that we do put out here. So for you and your team, is there a checklist of going about getting good content that you guys go by? What are some of the main qualities or main things you look for when you're creating content? I know you guys kind of leave it open to hear the different perspectives, but if you had a wish list, what would it be?
Well, I'm going to give away a top secret thing, so Emmett, earmuffs. But really, we look at things here at ESPN Cleveland through 3 lenses: Browns, drama, and fun. So it doesn't mean we don't do content about the other teams, but we certainly like drama and or fun as a way to really engage, the fans. And if you're doing Browns, drama, and fun, then you're hitting all the bases, but that's really what we look at when we're looking at topics, looking at ideas, looking at guests to talk about is where do they fit in there? And they can fit in there, like I said, from a completely different sport, but what's the fun aspect? Is there a dramatic aspect? So that's really how we look at things here. As we're addressing and looking at creating content.
I think that's very smart. I'm also from Cleveland, so I understand the drama, the fun, the Browns, the diehardness for it. It definitely gets the blood rushing, and it definitely gets me to tune in more to know more about the city as well as those that are representing it. What about you, Emmett?
Well, just for people that don't know, Matt Fishman is my boss, right? So
doesn't mean you have to agree with me.
yeah. So I gotta say Browns drama and fun, or I'll get fired. No. I mean, for me, at least the next level. I'll talk about us as a show. We are all about the fun. The drama, not so much. Most of us, the three of us on the show, aren't really in the drama, but obviously if drama's happening, we will give our opinions on it.
Right.
But for us, it's fun. It's fun, and it's how can we relate to our audience? What is our audience going through, right? If I had, if whether it's me or even if it's Gerard Cherry, who I do the show with, or Jordan Climack, if they had an interaction that a lot of people have, whether it's shopping, whether it's trying to find a place to live, whatever it is, a lot of times we'll bring that up on the air and on the show. Sometimes it's fun, but more than anything, it's relatable. And some hosts and some media members, personalities, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Sometimes they get caught up in trying to prove that they're different, when honestly, most people want to feel like they can relate to you. Most people want to go like, oh yeah, I eat at that place. Yeah, you know what? I did that too. So that's what we look for when we sit down and we're creating our rundown and trying to figure out what we're going to talk about on the show. Is Browns drama fun, but we're super focused on fun and being relatable.
I think that's great. And I know you mentioned relevant to your audience. How are you able to determine what's relevant and relatable to your audience? What are the strategies or the steps that you guys take to determine that?
I think it's something that like you just know, how many times have you gone to Chipotle and they ran out of something? That's relatable. And that's something that everybody, gets frustrated with. So if we can somehow bring that up in some point at our show, something like that, you just, you know it. And I wish I could do a better job of,
No, I mean,
explaining
I think you said it earlier a little bit when you say like it's kind of easier now with like kind of information at the access of our palm. So
yeah,
I definitely understand that.
We, listen, the game House of the Dragon, right? Like that was a gigantic show. 30 million people were watching it. So that I watch it, that's relatable. So I know 30 million people, at least some of them in my audience, watch it too, and they're excited about it. And that opens up a whole nother door, not necessarily just to talk about the show, but what type of shows are you into? What shows do you hate that everybody else likes? And again, I've been doing it for a while, so it's a little easier for me to identify. But if it's hot, if it's trending, if it's an average experience, everybody has to go stand in line at the BMV, right? And we all hate it. So you can mention that, hey, what'd you do this weekend? I spent 2 hours, in the BMV, and it makes you more relatable and it makes your audience connect with you.
More about the real life experiences. And Matt, Mr. Matt, sorry about that. Do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Well, I would say, yeah, and it's one thing we often talk about is being three-dimensional, in that we're human beings. And so like for Emmett and Gerard and Jordan, if they came on a show on a day when we had a big snowstorm the night before, or we're having one at the time of their show, and didn't talk about the snow, then they're not doing their jobs, right? And so you have to, otherwise robots can do the show, right? And they would just talk robot that would sound like a human, which is we're probably not that far off of, could talk about the insert things about the Browns game and whatnot. But one of the first shows I heard when I was still interviewing for this job was at The Next Level, and they were talking about, they sort of were surprised by a snowstorm, and Emmett and Gerard talked about what they ended up using because they didn't have their ice scrapers with them. And it was like a cereal box and a broom. It was like also, and it was just so relatable because you can think of like all the times you're like, oh, it's up in my apartment, or I don't have one yet this year, and all the different things we've all tried, right, to clear snow. And it's just, it's understanding your environment, understanding the community you're in, and that's where I think you find a lot of the relatability. And to Emmett's point, there's a lot of just general relatability. Like some of the best stories Emmett has told have been about like pulling up at a gas station and some guy pulled up on him. He thought they were going to get into a big fight, but it was just some guy who recognized him and was a fan. So here Emmett's ready to go, and it's just a fan who recognized him. And so it's real life is where a lot of the great content is. Just it's there, just paying attention. And I think what Emma's show especially does is they are always communicating. Like they'll see something, whether it's on TV, in their real life, or whatever, and they'll instantly communicate it in a text chain so that they're always prepping for the next show the second today's show is over.
I think that's a really great thing that you guys consider when you're creating your content, is how to make it relatable. Again, I tell my students this all the time. People want something that they can relate to. It's more trusted. So one of the top selling things you can do is word of mouth. It's more trusted. So if I trust you, I'm going to go tell my grandmother, I'm going to go tell my friends, and now that's building more of a return rate for you. So I think that's awesome that you guys do that, but also it makes it feel more natural and welcoming to the community as well. And those tips about the snow, because you guys get more snow than we do, I definitely know people were looking out like, okay, because I don't have a snow cleaner, so I need to go ahead and figure out what I can improvise with. So I know people were very grateful for that one. So my next question is, how do you ensure that your content is achieving your goal?
I mean, for me, if everybody's smiling, then I'm achieving my goal. If I see someone, I was in Pittsburgh over the weekend, and I was on a college campus tour with my son, who's a junior, and someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, man, I'm from Cleveland, and I love your show. The promos have me cracking up. This is funny and that." So when I get that type of feedback of people that just go like, "Man, I have a good time when I'm listening to your show," that's how you know. You really don't know. You feel it, right? Like, I think you feel when you have a good show. Yeah, but you don't really know until you get feedback from your audience. And sometimes it could be via social media, and that feels good. But for me, the biggest compliment I ever got in my life was, there was a woman that I met one day, and she told me that when she listens to me, she feels like she's listening to her nephew. And that told me I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing a good job. And I'm not Fish can tell you, I'm not a very arrogant, cocky person at all. But when I hear that, I go, okay, I'm on to something.
I'm doing something
to be able to connect with someone that I've never met to the point where they feel like I'm a family member, then that's how I know I'm doing my job the right way.
Nice. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's the ability, and especially in the slot that Emma's show is in on that afternoon drive. People are driving home from work and they may not have had a great day. They may not be looking forward to what they're going home to. They may just be in a rut, but for however long their commute is, they can tune in to The Next Level, and they're hanging out with their friends Emmett, Gerard, and Jordan, and laughing and having a good time. And it's a great escape. If we're doing it right, it's a great escape that people get to have that, closeness with our hosts and enjoy that time in their car ride home.
That's got to be refreshing, because in a sense that's your way of servicing the community and nourishing them as well. So that's definitely got to be a refreshing feeling for you guys, knowing that the content you're creating can possibly change somebody's mood and help them out in their day as well. You mentioned something about the promo that you use, and just about how do you guys go about placing your content? Like, what is the strategy for that? Now, I know we've talked about your team and the 3Lens, but what is your strategy for placing your promos and the content you're going to talk about for your show and things like that?
Sure. I would say the strategy for the promos, and ours is probably different than a lot of radio stations. A lot of radio stations are sort of pointing to something, right? This
Mhm.
show's coming on at this time, this is coming up at this time, and whatever. And ours are really to engage people so that, as Emmett mentioned for his show, it's the funny that comes out in a lot of them,
Yeah.
right? And so it connects with fans so that it's just not look, in everything I've seen, listeners, for the most part, a promo is the same as a commercial. It's just
Right.
another interruption until your show that you want to hear is back on. So when they're creating promos that are memorable, that are engaging, that are making the fans laugh, that to me is really the purpose of it, more so than beating away that such and such is coming up at this time, because it's hard for people to remember those things even if you're beating them over the head with it. So why not make them laugh, and it's easy for them to remember because it's a feeling, not having to really think about it, but they get
Yeah.
that feeling from that promo. So a lot of our strategy is really to evoke some sort of a feeling
Mhm.
from our fans, both in the promos and in the content, right? Um,
Mhm.
and that's for us much more important than pointing to a specific showtime or a specific game time.
I think that's very brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah. For us, like I don't necessarily handle the promos. Our producer does, and he does a great job at it because he's able to capture the show in 30 seconds, a minute, sometimes 10 seconds. And he's able to do that. And that's, I mean, as a host, that's all I can ask for is, for a piece of our show to play a promo and people to laugh or go, man, I love it. And it's funny because people who listen to a lot of radio, they get tired of promos after a while. But I've had people tell me, oh man, I love that when you were getting chased by a dog promo.
That's so
You know, 'cause that's the show,
Yeah.
that's the show. Me talking about getting chased by dogs and Gerard talking about his favorite foods and stuff like that. So if we can have, and we're fortunate enough that we do have somebody that can capture the true essence of the show in 30 to 60 seconds, that's all you could ask for as a host.
That's a talent. It's definitely a talent. So some people may be a bit stressed when we have breaking news. How do you guys go about covering breaking news? How do you go about making sure that you can get the best angle while under pressure with breaking news?
So I'll let Emmett answer this, but I'll say this. I don't know that any broadcast outlet on the United States, at least, has had as much experience in dealing with breaking news over the years. But with that, I'll pass it to Emmett to describe how it's been.
Yeah, fortunately enough, I've had a lot of opportunities, trial and error wise, because there's always
Hmm.
news breaking in Cleveland, especially with the Browns and stuff. For
Mm.
me, as soon as news breaks, I need to tell the audience what the news is. I need to make sure that I'm clear, and I need to reset a lot. Browns trade for Deshaun Watson. That news breaks. I'm telling our audience it's breaking news. Deshaun Watson, and then after I give them the information, I like a point guard pass to someone, right? My co-host,
Mm,
get his thoughts on it. I'm fortunate enough to work with a guy that won 3 Super Bowls and played in the NFL for like 9 years, 7 to 9 years. So I'm asking him his thoughts
mhm.
while I'm looking for information, and our producer is looking for more information. So once he kind of gives his insight and his perspective as a player, well, I am then again resetting because your audience turns over so much in radio. You can't just assume that everybody is listening knows what the breaking news is.
Right.
Um, and then you want to, every time there's more information, you want your producer to do as much fact checking as possible so that they're giving you good information. Then you give it to your audience. And once you're doing that, now it's time to bring in the audience. What do
Mm,
the fans think about this? And it is extremely fun. It's an adrenaline rush. We have so many. I said I'm not cocky about anything, but I'm cocky about that. When breaking news hits, I know that we're gonna kill it. I know that we are because everybody immediately locks in. Everyone knows their role. We have a production team. They start turning around promos from the breaking news
mhm.
immediately. And the biggest thing when breaking news is going on, inform, reset, opinion, pretty much in that order, just
Nice.
so you can make sure your audience knows what you're talking about. And at that point, you just kind of let the opinions and stuff go, but you want to work in calls, you want to work in tweets because it is a community. And when the
Mhm.
Browns make a move for a quarterback, even if it's as toxic as it was with Deshaun Watson. So that's a whole nother element to it. You also have to understand that some people are not going to be happy about this, and they
Yeah,
have a
just
right
like the
to,
LeBron James case.
yeah, and they have a right to voice their opinion as well. So
Mhm.
really doing your best, and we kind of can see what the callers want to say. So it's my job to kind of weave in different opinions and give things to accentuate our points or challenge our points.
Mhm.
So that's the way we approach it, and it goes fast. You can do 4 or 5 hours, and you're like, "Whoa, I just blinked," because
Wow.
that's how focused that you are. It takes a little while to get there. My first time, I was like, "Oh my God, what am I doing? How do I do this? I don't know." So you just kind of got to figure it out. But now, like, yeah, we know what we're doing when it comes to breaking news.
Good, good. You guys developed a method over time. I guess it would go back to that powerful team that you guys have. Everybody's
Hmm.
there for the same goal and they all understand. It sounds like in your team, if one person's struggling, you guys are strong enough to help them in an area so that you guys can all arrive at the end goal for what you set out for, which that's great. A lot of people I feel look for that when they're in their work environments and their careers and things of that nature. So how do you go about getting the scoop for the story?
Well, I mean, there's a variety of ways. I'm not a news breaker, right?
Hmm.
So I don't do a lot of digging. I have developed a number of relationships throughout my time in the media, and that is the most important thing. I tell everybody when you work in the media and you want to get here, build relationships for a
Indeed.
variety of reasons, not just to have sources, but for, I mean, tons of reasons.
Mhm.
But you trust your guys who are the news breakers. The way I used it, I've had a couple times where I kind of tried to break news, and it didn't really go like I thought it would go. Not even
Mhm.
like it went bad, but it wasn't what I thought it was. So from that, so now if I get information that might not be out there in the streets, I'm going to use it to help my opinion because that's what I'm paid to do, to give my opinion. So if I
Mhm.
know the Guardians are going to sign somebody, maybe give some extensions in the show that day, I might go. You know what? I think the Guardians might be cooking something up. I feel like something is going on, even though I know something is going
Yeah, you
on.
giving it a teaser. Make
Yeah,
them come back.
yeah. And after the fact, it's like, oh, okay, hey, and it was right. Um, but it's just a different kind of job. Reporters and newsbreakers, those guys depend on their relationships,
Hmm.
and they depend on making sure the information is accurate too. So I'm a little different in that, where I don't need to have story broken by Emmett Golden. I don't need that. But if it'll help me be more educated about something that's going on in pro sports or just stuff around the city, then it's extremely valuable to me. And the only way I get that information is by having great relationships with a lot of the people that I meet.
Nice. I tell my students, your network is always going to be your net worth. If you don't know anybody in the industry, it makes your job 10 times harder, especially if we are talking about, news reporters or um, just reporting in general. It's important to know the people, but also know the content that you're creating as well. Matt, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah,
I know you kind of touched on it a little bit.
sure. But I would say this. I would say whether you're covering a political beat, a sports beat, whatever, just remember that whether someone is the mayor, governor, president, NBA All-Star, whatever, they're just human beings. And if you can relate to them and build a relationship on a human level, like they're because they're real people,
Mhm.
then if you need something or you need something confirmed or you need a bit of information to lead you in the right direction, if you've built that relationship based on, trust and treating them like a human being instead of very transactionally, where it's like you need something every time you talk to them. If that's the case, if you need something every time you talk to someone, that's not a relationship.
Indeed.
That is just a transaction. But if you have a good relationship with somebody, if you need something, and nowadays it's so easy with technology, oftentimes it's just a quick text like, hey, is this where you're looking to go in this? And that can lead you in the right direction if whether you're writing a story, doing a TV story, digital story, or whatever.
Mhm.
So, oftentimes you have a number of different, you know, potential stories coming in or directions to go with the story, and so you need some help from the inside to know what's actually happening, but you really have to build those relationships. Otherwise, when you need them, like you said, and you have no network, then you're dead in the water. You got
Indeed. Indeed.
nowhere to go with the story.
Indeed, this is true. So, gonna switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about esports. When it comes to creating content for esports, um, what are some things you guys suggest to get the audience engaged?
I mean, for me, it's all kind of social, right? It's all,
Hmm.
social. It's honestly, if you're covering esports, play those games with your audience, right?
Hmm.
And I think that legitimizes you,
True.
and it helps get your, I hate using this word, your brand out there. But when it comes to, covering esports, again, build the relationships, but understand the medium. They're not really on TV. That's more of a internet thing, a Twitch thing,
Mhm.
so use those platforms, don't go outside of the platform to try to build it. Build it within the platform, then you can expand
Mhm.
that way. So, for people that cover esports, make sure people know, first of all, know what you're talking about. Make sure that you have your own Twitch channel and that, you're playing these same games that you're covering.
Mhm.
I think that would help go a long way.
Indeed. Matt, do you have
I
anything to
have
say
nothing
about
to add.
esports?
Emmett is the expert on esports, and I am not. So I
Said I'm out of
pass.
it. I'm out of it. I'm out of it. This is new age. You guys can keep it. No. I just noticed that it's been a ramp in esports, especially with the advancements that we have with AI and technology and things. So just wanted to know you guys' mindset when it comes to creating content towards esports. Gratitude for answering that for us, Emmett. All right, so my last question, and then we're gonna go ahead and get into the question and answering. My last question is, what are some basic tips for audience, not the audience, but for our viewers to find success?
Oh, well, I mean, again, I'll start here, and it's actually something I learned at OMS. Like, if
Mhm.
you're not willing to work hard, then it ain't for you. And actually, I don't
Yep.
know if anything's for you
That's
if you're
true.
not willing
Very true.
to work hard, because nothing of value is easy to obtain. It's just not.
Mhm.
So I'll start there. Then you're going to have to build those relationships, right? Like I talked about. And it sounds daunting. Like, I got to build relationships. How do I do that? Well, everybody has a friend, right? You might not
Yes.
have a bunch of friends, but you may have a friend. And how did you become friends, right? Like, just think about that, approach it like that. And I've been blessed to have an ability to kind of, make friends pretty easily. So that would be another one. And then the last thing, honestly, is understand adversity is going to happen. You're not going to
Mhm.
escape it. You're not going to start and go straight to the top and be the most successful person in whatever field that you want to be. It ain't going to happen like that. There's going to be a lot of adversity, and understand you're going to have to overcome it. And if you can do those three things and just stay level headed and stay focused, then the sky's the limit.
So it definitely sounds like, making sure that, oh my God, my mind just wiped away. But
Hey, it
bringing it
happens
back,
to me on
bringing
the
it
air
back.
today.
It's
Don't feel
moving
bad.
a mile a minute right now. But basically, stepping outside of your comfort zone is going to be a big tool from what I'm hearing from you saying, as far as building your network and things of that nature. Uh,
Yes, yes and no. I mean,
mhm.
ultimately, you got to be yourself, and I think hopefully we're all comfortable with ourselves.
Mhm.
If we're not, do your best to find that. Because once you're comfortable with yourself, you know, the hard work, the building relationships, the overcoming adversity, all that stuff is a lot easier if you're comfortable with who you are. Um, I I know I do my best to be polite to everybody, and I don't do many things, really anything that's mean spirited. So if I have a sports take and somebody calls me an idiot and that I'm dumb and that I don't know anything, I'm okay with that because I know who I am and it's not the end of the
Yeah.
world. Yeah, but so that, I mean, you got to be comfortable with who you are, because if you're going to be in front of a microphone or a camera, that's you. That's you. That's who
Hmm.
you are. And if you try to be somebody else, why would I listen to you or watch you? If I tried to be Stephen A. Smith, why the hell would anybody listen to me? Just watch First
Right.
Take. So once I realized, it might sound stupid, once I realized who I am, and I was like, yeah, I'm all right with this person. Then the rest of it, it kind of was just part of it. All right, I accept it. I'm gonna have to work hard. I accept it. I'm not gonna be able to do it alone. I'm gonna need a team, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna need relationships, and then also understanding that there's gonna be adversity too. There's gonna be people who get hired before I get hired.
Mhm.
Or that get opportunities before I get opportunities. But as long as I was comfortable with who I am and I followed those three, I knew I would be all right.
I appreciate you touching on that. Believe it or not, I don't think it was a silly question. I feel like
Mhm.
people actually deal with that battle on silently within
Mhm.
themselves. So I'm grateful that you touched on that. Also, consistency is key with anything. Gratitude for answering that. Mr. Matt, did you have any successful tips?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, building off of what Emmett was talking about there, um, you know, finding out who you are, not just, um, as Emmett sort of figured out who he was, but especially for anyone who's going to be on the air, radio, TV, and a personality standpoint, like I think we all sort of come up idolizing certain people in the media, like, oh, I'd love to be like this person. But like Emmett said, he's not going to be Stephen A. Smith, and fans don't want him to be. So
Yeah.
it's like, how do I find the unique, unique me? Who is me, and what makes me different from everybody else? And then the other thing when you're talking about personality formats is it's not that important, and I'd say it's barely important to be right. Be interesting. I don't care if you're right and you can, unless you can bet on it now in Ohio and tell me the exact score of every Browns game, if you're boring, because at some point that person comes off as a know-it-all. But be
Yeah.
interesting. Be interesting, be curious, and Emmett hit on the biggest thing. the thing between where you are now and where you want to be is hard work, and it's relentless, and it doesn't stop, and it doesn't have holidays, and it doesn't know what weekends are, and you just have to be willing to work anytime, anywhere. Emmett was supposed to be doing an internship 1 day a week. How many days a week were you here?
I was every day, like
Yeah,
six
exactly.
out of 7 days.
Right.
Yeah. And I also asked for every opportunity.
Yep.
I knew I had to separate myself. Again, I was 29 years old. There, all the other interns were 20, 21, 22. I walked in there with 2 kids and a wife. So I had to do something to differentiate myself, and it was to show everybody that I was hungry, reliable. Yeah, and and that I'd love to talk to them, about whatever they wanted to talk to, and you'd be surprised about how far, just listening. And then, I talk about talking to people. You'd be surprised how important listening to someone is. And if you can, if you do that, like that, it worked. It worked for me. I'm pretty sure it'll work for anybody else wanting to pursue stuff.
Indeed. All right, so we do have a few questions, as well as we have someone with their hand raised. The first question is for you, Emmett. Bobby asked, when you use the word brand, you put quotation marks around it. So Bobby's like, why don't you like that word?
I mean, it just, to me, it's just corny to me, because it has a negative connotation, just to me though. And I'm not saying anybody else has to feel that way, but when I hear people talking about their brand, and I'm not saying this is right, I'm accepting who I am, right? It's it sounds arrogant, for me, like, well, I have to make sure my brand is and my brand, and I do this for my brand. To me, it sounds like arrogance, and maybe that's just a me thing. But that's why I use air quotations on that, because I feel like once you get a brand, it's really hard to stay grounded. But I do get what the word means, so that's the only reason. There's just stuff that is weird or different to me, in referring to my brand feels like I said, kind of cocky and arrogant, and I'm not comfortable with cockiness or arrogance, so it's just a me thing.
It's definitely the way the context in which they use the word brand, for sure. I can understand that, because now that you say it like that, I'm thinking back, like, I've been in situations where people have seemed a little cocky or arrogant when they told me about their brand. It kind of made me like, oh yeah, that's nice of you, and then I just went on about my day. So definitely work on you guys' delivery when it comes to your own brands. All right, so we got a few more questions. I'm not sure what order you guys have raised your hands, but we're gonna do
No
our best
problem.
to
I
get-
can actually Erin, I can actually see it in the chat. So if you want, I can help out with that. I do see that
Awesome.
Aiden has his hand up. So Aiden, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, go ahead.
Thank you, Rhoda.
Thank you guys for being here. This is awesome. Mr. Golden, as a guy that I've looked up to, listened to a lot in my life on ESPN Cleveland, and I'm at Ohio Media School right now in sports emphasis. How did you get your foot in the door and elevate to the spot you're at? Because that's where I kind of aspire to be at.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, going all the way back, it took a conversation, with my wife, because before I pursued this, and I was 20, like I said, I was 29, I was working at Dick's Sporting Goods, and she asked me, like, don't you want to have a career? And I was just grateful to have a job, and so I wasn't even thinking that deeply. But once she said that, I was like, okay, she's got a great point. So I evaluated myself. I asked myself what I was good at. I couldn't find anything. So then I asked myself, what do you love? And I love sports. So once I identified that and decided that, hey, you know what, I could learn, and I had no aspirations, Aiden, to be completely honest with you, to be on the air. I thought it would be great to learn how to produce and run the board, because I didn't think I had the ability to be on the air. There were guys when I walked into ESPN Cleveland that to me were legends in the Rhodas, Regis, Brendas, Munch, Riz even. So once I got in there, I just said, like, why would I not talk to these guys? Why would I not ask them their opinions on stuff? And one of the things I still do to this day, and I would encourage everybody to do that, if you have a question, ask multiple people the same question, right?
Nice.
Because you might get a bunch of different answers and realize, there's really no science to this. It's whatever I feel good or comfortable with.
Mhm.
Or maybe everybody gives you the same answer and you goes, okay, that's how it's done. So that's really what it's been, man. All the stuff, the building relationships and just really searching and being a sponge. I believe you can learn a lot from most people, even if it's what not to do. So that's really it, man. Just be a sponge, build those relationships. Don't be afraid to hear no.
Yeah.
I asked for opportunities that I wasn't sure I was gonna get. I got some and some I didn't, so that's kind of how it's worked for me. And again, just having a good attitude, man, because there's so many ups and downs. You can't control that. You can control how you react to them. So just do your best, in that standpoint. That's the best advice I could give you, bro. Network, build relationships, and take the bumps and bruises as they come.
Nice, nice, nice.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You're welcome, bro.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm gonna just jump in real fast too because I don't know about all the campuses, so check with your career services directors, but I do know with Cleveland, the ESPN Good Karma Brands internship window is currently open. So if you are interested in interning, just like Emmett, that's how he got, his foot in the door too. Now's the time to apply. So touch base with me, it's Huda, by the way. And I can get you to the right link. And then for the other campuses, make sure that you're checking with your career services directors or education to see if there's something similar in your at your campus. All right, Kevin is up next. We do have about 7 minutes, so we're gonna make this quick. If Phil was here, he'd say we're gonna do lightning round. So ask your question, and then Emmett or Matt, if you could just quickly answer it so we can get through the other 4 questions, that would be great.
You got it.
Go ahead, Kevin. Kevin, if
That was quick.
Yeah.
Kevin, can you hear us? Go ahead and jump in with your question. We can't hear you. You might have to drop it in the chat.
Yeah, your mic's
All
not
right.
working.
We're going to go on to Dawn. Dawn, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
Hi, I'm at the Columbus campus at Ohio Media and Sports Emphasis. My biggest challenge was going from an on-air radio personality to sports emphasis and separating the two. But my question is, if you are commentating, is it like, as a commentator, does somebody bring you your information, or do you have to bring your own information, and what time limit would you actually have to produce that and get it ready before you're commentating?
So I will say this locally, we do a lot. I mean, personally, I'm 24 hours a day thinking about content, and not like I'm a madman
Okay.
that's like, oh my God, what do I have to talk about? No, it's going through my day and identifying things that my audience might be interested in and reading. So it's an all day thing. I get to the office a little earlier, but our show's at 3 at 2 o'clock. We sit down, me, my co-host, my producer, and we've already been talking all day about, sending articles. Hey, read this, see what's going on, and then we hammer out a rundown in that last hour. So really, it's kind of an all day thing prepping for a show, but really, when you get down to the nitty gritty, about an hour or so.
Nice, nice.
Great. Thank you. All right. And I see we lost someone, but Carlos, your hand is up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, hello, could y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
We got
Yep.
you.
My question is for Amit, man. I'm a big fan of you, man. I've been a fan of you since you was I think it was a producer with Excellent, with the
Oh
Excellent.
yeah,
Pro.
all
But,
way back. I appreciate
Yep.
that.
So my question to you is, and I'm a student at Ohio Media School, and I'm about to graduate in May. My question to you is, you brung up adversity. So how did you handle your adversity to get to where you at now?
Mm.
Just understanding that it's part of it, you know, because I mean, business is no different than life. Like, I guarantee, I don't know anybody on this call outside of, Matt and Linda, and I can guarantee all of you had to go through adversity in your life at some point. So when it happens in where you're pursuing a career, it's life. I kind of learned that at a very early age with things that happen in my life. So that's how I stay focused on it. Like, yeah, stuff happens. I still found a way to enjoy it afterwards when you go through things. So that's been my stuff. There have been guys who were hired before me, and it ain't got nothing to do with me. I just have to keep going. It's something that I tell everybody. I tell my kids that, I tell my wife that, I tell my co-host that. You just got to keep going. And if you keep going, you never know where it's gonna, where you're gonna land, but I can guarantee you won't achieve your goal if you quit. And that's kind of been my way of approaching it. Like, I want it to work. I want this really, really bad. If I quit, I'm not gonna get it. But if I exhausted my talent and everything, and it didn't work out, I could feel okay with that because I know that I didn't cheat myself. So overall, it's just understanding that adversity happens in life, and the business world and your career is not going to be different than that.
Awesome. Thank you. I know we only have 3 minutes. I just saw a question in the chat and we've got one more hand up, but before we run out of time, for those that want to connect with you, can you share with them the best way to do that, whether it's through, LinkedIn, Instagram, is there an email? Like, what's the best way for our students and graduates to just kind of connect and add you to their network?
Yeah, you can email me, egolden at goodkarmabrands.com. That's the best way probably to get in touch with me.
And for me, I'd say it's LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, that's great. Then I can see what you're up to, and you can see what I'm up to, and we can just connect there. It's a great way for me to network with people who are either working in the business, want to work in this business, and go from there.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'll drop your email in there, and then Matt, I
Okay.
can grab your LinkedIn for everyone, and I'll drop
Great.
that in there too. All right. I do see that I've got a couple more questions. Ruby, you had a question. If you want to jump in, go ahead. Oh no, Ruby are you still there?
Yes, I do. I am.
Okay.
Okay, hi guys. Hi, Edmund. Hi, Mr. Fisherman. Thank you
How
and
you doing?
appreciate all you guys' knowledge and coming and giving us everything that you guys brought to the table today. And I really appreciate it because I'm right now at OMS myself, and I'm going to graduate in May. And I have a radio station myself, and I'm trying to incorporate it. Like, it's in the beginning, but I get discouraged because I also have a restaurant that I'm opening. But this is my thing. My radio, I want to get back to the community. I know, like, I have a vision with it. But then when I get discouraged and when it becomes so much or like a wall on, like, how do we keep going? How do we keep going?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I said before. Like, that's part of it, right? Doubt, questioning, like, those are all very normal ways to feel, and that everybody else feels. The best thing I could, do, and it's not as simple as this, but just believe in yourself. I know I'm saying that very casually, and it's not as easy as that. Trust me, I definitely
It's that
understand
simple,
that.
though. You really got
Yeah.
it becomes that simple. It does become that simple, especially when you start having the confidence within yourself. So I get it. Thank you for that, though.
Miss
Yeah, no
Eden,
problem.
if I may, I have a cafe myself as well as I'm a instructor here at OMS. Balance. Find the medium between how you can balance your restaurant, but also manage your radio station as well. And honestly, we're talking about creating content. These run hand in hand. So you can
Yes.
help with promoting your restaurant, but
Right.
also your radio station as well. But find a balance. And when it's time for the radio station, give your consistency and your attention there. And then when it's time for your restaurant, give it there. So that way you don't feel like you're overwhelming yourself or stretching yourself too thin.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
And real quick, use one as an outlet too. You know,
Yeah.
maybe it's the radio station. Use that as an outlet. That's what I
That's
do with my
definitely
show.
my outlet. That is
Yeah,
definitely my outlet.
yeah, that's what I do with my show. You know, 2 hours a day, nothing exists but
You're
the
right.
fun that's happening in that room. You know.
Thank you guys so much for that.
You're welcome and
Gratitude.
good luck.